Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at... how are we going to decide to pronounce it? Is it July and Julian or is it Julie and Julian? Julianne. It's a play from... Well, we're not really 100% certain when it dates from, depending on who you ask. Some people say it's around 1558 to 1570-ish. Some people put it a little earlier than that. Some people put it all the way back to 1547 to 53. There are fewer of them these days, but there are some who still really love to go for that. But the later date range is probably more likely, perhaps somewhere in the middle of the 1560s. But we can't be certain, and maybe this room will be able to resolve some of those ambiguities about that. I know next to nothing about this play at all. It was an absolute nightmare trying to get a copy that we could use. In fact, we couldn't find a copy that we could meaningfully use. We actually asked Helen to actually transcribe it from a copy of the manuscript. So this is very much a work in progress as we actually figure out what the hell this play is, because it's one I know about as existing, but actually I've barely even scanned through the text, and that's unusual for me. So I'm really excited because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how any of the names are supposed to be pronounced because there are all sorts of interesting questions that we're going to try and resolve. So there may be some errors, there may be some confusions. Some of us may say the names in slightly different ways. We know nothing. So we are going to try and go from a position of ignorance to a position of knowledge by the end of these 2 sessions of this play. And reading today, Fenell is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
Reading the Prologue and Wilkin today is...
Hi, Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading the Song School Master and Julian is...
And Lois Potter, retired academic based in London.
Reading Mawd today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good, a historian in Hull.
Reading the Grammar School Master and Chremes today is...
It's me, Nicole, actor in New Jersey.
And reading Pierpinte, and July or Julie, TBA, is...
I'm Briony, actor in Lincolnshire, having an identity crisis with not knowing how to pronounce my own names today.
And reading Nan, Misis, and Scholars, plural, is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and just based on the title of this, I like to think that it's a genderqueer play, but I think that's probably just not possible. I don't know.
We shall see. I'd say I am your host, Robert Crighton, and also I normally would be reading stage directions. There aren't really many stage directions. There are basically scene breaks which may or may not involve exits or entrances, but that's it. There are no stage directions in this text. So otherwise, I'm going to be reading Dick. And so that's what I'm primarily going to be doing. So without further ado, we'll stop and start fairly often, I think. We have the time. But reading the prologue, we haven't had a chunky prologue for a while. So, Alan, take it away.
Thank you, sir. For as much as most worshipful audience hereof, all men have done their diligence, in such honest mirth as the time required, and with great praise achieved that we desired, after matters most wittingly devised, and great labour most happily practised, we are come hither to trouble you as boys, and after sage things to show our trifling toys. Please it you therefore to be so favourable, if we children make mirth as we been able, not desiring plays, but to show our wit, in such exercise as for us be fit, our unableness therein to take in good part, accepting the thing for our willing heart, and that in this you may perceive our intent, I will shortly speak to you the argument. One Chremes, by Mawd his wife, had 3 children, whereof the one was a maid, and the other 2 men. Of the 2, the elder, Julie by his name, loved greatly his mother's maid, Julianne, And when he had to her broken his mind, he found her to him in all points like kind. Albeit his mother this well perceived, through Wilkin's device she was so deceived, that she sought t'one and t'other from love as free and as honest as any persons might be. Nevertheless, afterward such chance befell, that Chremes to a merchant this maid did sell. But Julie's servant Wilkin, working such deceit, joining Fenell to him in working his feet, that the merchant has his money forth gone and spent, without the maid to his master home went. Then the matter with craft is so conveyed, that Chremes in his drunkenness with avarice is decayed. Thinketh his servants to him played a good part, and so married his son to the maid with all his heart. The servants also for this their diligence, received freedom without any tarriance. These things and parts to play is our whole intent. This is our only purpose and argument. Wherefore we humbly beseech you in your audience to give us favourable hearts with silence.
So, it's one of those, we're going to tell you the plot prologues. Hope you enjoy the show. And yeah, it's sort of interesting the way it's talking about the performers. It's sort of, are they pretending to be boys, or are they boys in their own shape? It's slightly confusing the way that's written out. That's really interesting. Lois.
Yeah, I was interested in the fact that they say they're doing this after sage things. I mean, I wonder whether this is some sort of school exercise day in which they've all showed off something much more learned, or whether they're part of something else with older people who are doing that. But anyway, because this play is clearly different. This is the lightweight bit, but they have had some sage things before it.
We're hereof all men have done their diligence, and now we're going to have some honest mirth. Yeah, it's really interesting because it's not 100% clear, and I have to say, in terms of tone and the way it's written, it's reminding me of slightly earlier plays than later plays, and we were talking about precisely when to date this. I mean, there's nothing particularly smoking gun here, but it is reminding me of things like Gamma Gurton's Needle at the moment, which is and just the way that prologue and some of the other prologues that are structured is really interesting. Though not essentially that important. Helen.
Following what Lois said, it strikes me it's a bit like a school speech day. This is the final bit, the junior form play.
Yeah, but it's just the way this, we are come hither to trouble you as boys, and yeah, I'm just wondering, is it the masters dressed up and doing the other way around? I may be over. I know it's just the way it's phrased. It's just really slightly weird, rather than just immediately leaping to it being performed by boys. I'm just finding it very, very odd. And then we have plot, and hope you enjoy the show. Which we find all sorts of other places, and it's nice. It's nice sometimes to have the plot. We know where we are. It's straightforward setup. There's going to be some complication. Hopefully, all end happily. Yeah, that's nice. Rachael.
Just a question as to why so many, if this is a boys' play, how come so many of them have survived to this day? Because I feel like we've had a couple of these school ones. If anybody knows, maybe the audience.
Well, in a sense, we do have a lot surviving, in a sense we don't. We have some surviving, and they're spread out over a reasonably long period of time. Because of the way we've been doing these, we've sort of clustered them to a reasonable degree. But if you compare with later print, later on in time, when you've got quite a few plays being printed every year, and there aren't that many in terms of overall numbers. So yeah, maybe simply they're copied and kept, and and some of them get printed, and dumb luck possibly. I don't know whether, statistically speaking, it is a significant number or it's actually an insignificant number. It's a great question, which I don't have an answer. I don't know if other people in the room do. Alan.
The one thought I have on the survival of school-based plays is that schools, by and large, tend to survive as institutions, whereas playhouses or other formats may well not do. And therefore, once stuff has got into the school archive, it probably takes a pneumatic drill to get it out.
Or people have an incentive to keep their own copy, because this is a manuscript text. It wasn't published. Some are published, and there seem to be some people who effectively use it as a production line method and have a deal to get it printed. So some people are more enterprising than others. Lois.
Yeah, I think several of these exist only in manuscript, but also I would imagine that they might have kept it with the idea of doing it again in a few years, after all the kids who had done it had graduated. Useful thing to have around.
Yes, and Helen's made this point before, I think, might elaborate on it, just on, that we talk about, things getting printed and surviving, but that people copied things in manuscript and distributed them in a low-level way, so that maybe there was a network of institutions that pass scripts like this around, and maybe there's a reason why they survive is that they were copied. That might be a reasonable assumption.
Manuscript transmission was very, very much a thing, and we tend to give priority to stuff that gets into print that doesn't necessarily reflect the reality.
Okay. We shall move on, however, because that was just a prologue, and prologues are the bits that... to be fair, this is a prologue that mostly actually is keepable, because we can make a decision whether we want to tell the audience the plot in advance or not, and that's the decision we can make in the future. Very little of that is explicitly to do with the period, the thing that was happening in the original events. So we're going to go to Act 1, Scene 1. I think we'll read this in its entirety and then pause. So we have... Fenell, or Fenell, depending on how we want to say it. And we'll see what they have to say.
Whoso is present and would gladly know the numeral number of mischievous all of a row, which were ever felt, heard, seen, or understood, yet be not, were not, nor never can be good, hither let him come and learn them all of me. For in practice have I proved all means of misery. I was born in bondage and brought up in beggary. My life is lost in loitering, indeed be all but drudgery, drowsy and unlusty, and for lack of sleep my brows are heavy, my brain light. Mine eyes I cannot keep open, for cold I am almost hoarse, as lean as a rake, and coloured like some corpse. My flesh is fallen away, my visage bare and thin, and all the bones on my body not hangs, but only skin. Long logs my bones, my belly is never full, my back and bones be bet, my sconce is made a skull, and they which mark my legs, to marvel how I can upon such spindle shanks bear so manly a man. How say you, by this time from top to toe, from top to the toe is naught. If worse can be, worse shall be, unless some mean be wrought to shift myself besides all this unhappiness. And what is all this long on? I'faith, on my own simpleness, I am a simple fool, God knows. I do all things they say. My master makes me trudge, it is done straight away. The whore damsel says my dame sends me somewhither. I will run and come again. By and by comes another, wait on Master Dick to the school, and hie again to the market, to the coal pit in cold snow and rain, to wait upon a mare all the whole day long. If I apply not this, I am plied with cudgels strong, dirt-shod, wet-shod, holiday and working day, and when all is done, all is to do with me alway. My dame's puppy is a gentleman in respect of me. I durst not compare with old Bayard, but that she can scarce see. For when she has served us, then we serve her with meat, But when I have done aught, I can get naught to eat. Lor, thus they handle me, silly little poor knave. But I shall set a song for them, so God me save. After a way with Wilkin, a friend of mine did spell, that is to say with honesty, whereto I should I mell. Let other men hate that, for with crafty flattery will I deal, for men nowadays thereby do get their weal. My father get his thrift thereby, and so did my mother too. It is my own by nature, and this belongs thereto, with cap and knee, and near every word with yea, sir, no, sir, God save your fair face. Said ye so? Oh, how wittily! How say you? Am I not fit for this fine occupation? I may chance get my liberty by this fashion. Fenell was a fool till now, I perceive. This gear now must I leave. Oh, but shit! Yonder is my Dame Mawd, leading her brother about to show him many sights. I would her eyes were out. I'll skip to the next house and make me some excuse. This is another practice which I oft put in use.
Just going to pause there for a second, just checking on the transcription there, Helen.
Absolutely, 100%. I went over and over and over it, and Malone Society agrees.
That is a beautifully applied curse word. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, I've never seen
No.
shit used that way before.
No, like me neither.
It means hush.
But
Sorry, say again, Lois?
I'm sure it means hush, though. Something like whist, or, one of those words. Maybe
Yes.
just good, in fact.
But
Yeah,
it does work in the modern sense.
Oh, yeah.
It does, doesn't it? And it just leaps out at one of going, this feels not very early modern.
totally.
I have to say I prefer it than from a shush, but yes, the point is well taken. Other thoughts from the room?
Sorry. Well, anyway, it's there. But shit, yonder is my Dame Mawd. It's...
Well, if the Malone Society says it's true, then it must be so. Briony?
Just I really, really like this wonderful complaining big old moan that he has about how rubbish his life's been, bless him. And it's not, I mean, it's a big speech, it's a big moan, but it's not done in such a way that that you're rolling your eyes thinking, God, he has been through some stuff, bless him.
Yeah, and it's not unknown to have servants making this kind of woe is me speech. I mean, this is going back the odd 1,000 years, but it is nicely done. Work to the bone. Look at it. It's all his flesh is hanging off him. Other thoughts in the room.
Never gets a chance to eat.
or sleep. And he's cold.
Yeah, Sarah.
I did particularly like that line. I won't be able to find it now, but where he talks about how people are amazed that such Spindleshank's legs can hold up such a manly man. That really did tickle me.
Lois.
Yeah, I love that line. My dame's puppy is a gentleman in respect of me. Yeah, and actually the last line too, I think could be a kind of final aside to the audience. I'll skip to the next house and make me some excuse. This is another practice which I put oft in use.
Yeah. I sometimes skive off work. This is how I do it. Eric.
Yeah, that I was going to mention that sort of. It feels very how do you call it? Like you should be taking notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far, okay, we've only done 2 speeches, but so far it's bouncing along very nicely. I'm liking the world that's being painted here. But we should gather some data on some dialogue, shouldn't we? So I'm going to be doing some reading. Oh, how exciting! So Act 1, Scene 2. We have Mawd, we have Pierpinte, we have Dick, and we have Fenell. So let's see what they are doing for this short scene, and I think we'll run it into the next scene as well. So we'll do Act 1, Scene 2 and Scene 3, and I won't pause between the two. There may be some entrances and exits that occur, but we'll see if they're inferred.
Thus now, brother Pierpinte, you see every commodity that is about this house severally.
I see them and like them. We poor men of the country cannot be so gay as you in the city.
You speak merrily, brother. Indeed, we go gay, but you in the country get all the money.
It runs into the woods then. None cometh to us at all.
You say so. Oh, but how say you to this?
Here is a fair dial, all things for pleasure.
It's past 6 o'clock. Dick!
Here, forsooth.
Hear it! Trip to school quickly, or I'll twidge your dock.
I tarry but for Fenell, forsooth, who is sent of an errand.
Ye must have a man still. I' faith I'll be a tyrant. The servants in this house be the slothful lubbers alive. If I should tarry but half so long, I would think never to thrive. Why, Fennel, whereabout go you?
To fetch white puddings for your breakfast. I could get but these two.
Oh, it's well provided. Give them to Julian and make haste, that Dick were had to school. It's 6 of the clock and past.
I pray you, sister, yet, for my sake this day, give my little cousin leave to play. It is holiday while I'm here. Perhaps the schoolmaster shall agree.
On the Monday, would you so? Nay, it cannot be.
I pray you let him go.
I beshrew me then. Tut with playing, Dick, thou canst never be a man. Tomorrow, at your request, he shall play, and that is Tuesday. Fennel, go with Dick.
Yes, forsooth, mistress.
Nay, if boys should play too much, they would be listless.
Alas, boys should be born with.
Among all creatures less or mo, we poor little boys abide much woe. At home, at school, and everywhere, we silly ones are put in fear.
By my troth, I may be bold to tell you my mind. Methinks mistress is too unkind towards you that be so gentle of nature. You might have played this day and taken your pleasure.
Ah, yea, Fennel, in faith, she need not be so sore to me, for I know no cause wherefore. The devil, I trow, doth make many men hate boys. Some cannot in no wise away with boys' toys. I pray you, what is he that once boy has not been?
Now sure, as you say, no such could never be seen.
Men may do what they list, God wot, so cannot we. For if I laugh, my father a wanton calleth me. If I be sad, my mother says I am dumpish and surly. Of all living things, men be worst to please. Of all mankind, boys be least at ease. Of all boys, I dare say, none can be worse than I. Both my parents and masters handle me so shrewdly.
Indeed, your two masters play with you too lewdly.
My father doth worse to suffer them verily. If they were not, I should soon set them alight, and no marvel I am troubled for even from morning to night. For first in the morning I am sent to the grammar school, but to mope on an old book like a fool. A book? What is a book? What can one make of it?
Sir, if you speak for goodness, I trow never a whit.
Thou seest they be naught else but paper, ink, and pen, a many babs, pilgraves, and scrapings of a hen. Everything that God made for some good end was made, and sometimes for somewhat some men were thereof glad, but books doubtless the devil's or own grace from hell did fet, sith they be soon for naught but to make boys bet. Afternoon, at song school, I have another cast. Either mine ears be set at the pillory and set at the last.
Alas, good Master Dick, All men may perceive plain how piteously your tender age is put to too much pain. But you must needs take it patiently, till time you be a man. You are in a manner one already, so far as I judge can.
So I will, but I'll handle all my masters then. I'll pay them home for an old grudge, Fenell, you knowest when, because here the song school mine ears so well can pull. When I am a man, the pillory his ears shall stretch there full. And he that my buttocks for grammar have slain, his body, if I live, I will slay again. Ooh.
Is this the haste you make in the morning, coming to the school on this fashion loitering?
Why, sirrah, can you see so soon to rise and make no more haste? Will it be no otherwise? Up with him, take him up.
Oh, good master, hear me.
Sir, my mistress hath her commended unto you, desiring you to pardon little Master Dick, for he is tarried with his uncle. Besides, he is sick.
Are you sick, Master Dick? I am glad I know ye. Take him up, I will drive your maledic from ye. Thou, my sir, wilt thou loiter?
No, oh, never while I live. Schoolmasters be fiendish fellows, ye may me believe. And we'll pause there. Oh, I'm liking this. There's so much life to this. It's really interesting that we follow on from servant complaining about the terrible life that they have to schoolboy complaining about the terrible life that he has. Let's just note, it is past 6 o'clock. Boy should have been at school by 6, and he's late. So this is when he's talking about complaining about how hard his life is. In comparison with our schooling, or most of our schoolings, I'm sure the hours that this boy is expected to do are considerably more. And we've got a song master as well as the grammar master. So there's all sorts of really interesting information here being thrown in. I'm fascinated by Briony, then Rachael.
Just if someone can clear up a bit of confusion, did he talk about setting fire to some people? And who was that? Was that his teachers he's going to set fire to?
Fire?
He wanted to nail their ears to the pillory.
I'm sure there was something about, unless it's a different meaning, it's something about setting a light. I swear he was going to set someone alight.
I don't recall that. It might be a light as in, get away from them or something like that.
If they were not, I should soon set them alight.
Yeah.
Oh, talking about the books?
No. Oh, right. Okay.
Because, I love his description of talking about these books. What are books? They're paper, ink and pen. They're various forms and chicken scratches, yes, from the feathers.
But I think he's threatening to burn down the school with the masters in it. Myself.
Yeah.
If they were not, I should soon set them alight, and for no marvel I am troubled for me.
Yeah, because Fennell's just said, indeed, your two masters play with you too lewdly. So I think he is threatening to burn his teachers alive. So respect to him for that. I had some teachers like that myself back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if the sentiment is actually going that far, but he definitely would be quite happy never to go there again. But yeah. It does read that way, doesn't it? It's interesting, actually, the getting into Dick, as it were, was the absence of punctuation, because that's what we've got at this stage. It does make quite a difference. You get halfway through a sentence going, this is where this is going. There's so much to dig in here. Sorry. Anyway, Rachael, I apologise. We got distracted.
No, I was gonna say, because this is Monday and it's around 6 a.m. The servant having a fit and Dick having a fit is just a big Garfield poster. I hate Mondays. And then Dick is, I feel like Dick's run-on sentences are just like a young boy's babbling, and even if it's not meant that he wants to set the school even if he doesn't mean he wants to set the school on fire, I would love for it to be in that direction and to be as big as possible, just to I hate Mondays.
Because we also have the other characters as well talking about, oh, let him be off, and the way that Fenell actually does try to defend him as well. Oh, he's been sick and is awful, and they're not having any of it. And it's a question of because we don't have stage entrances or exits here, so we know obviously we have some exits earlier from those people talking about Dick, but also when do the two masters enter? Do they hear Dick orating on how much he hates this, and he wants to have them have their ears nailed to the pillory, and he wants to get them back, and are they standing behind him as he says that? Lois.
Yeah, I was wondering if this is one of these things where there are several different little settings on the stage, and they move to a place that represents the school, and then the masters appear from there. I was struck by a couple of things. One is that there was this custom of visitors often getting a play day, often for the whole class. In fact, they'd come to the school and ask for one. And in this case, the visitor's just asking for it for his nephew. The other thing is, again, the same dramaturgy as I was pointing out in the earlier scene, where Fenell has what looks to me like an aside to the audience at the end of his scene. It's kind of an exit line. And I think that's what Dick has here as well, because he's addressing the others. And then I think that last line, "Schoolmasters be fiendish fellows, ye may me believe," seems to me to be addressed to the audience.
Yeah, and we can all empathise with that a little bit from our days past. Helen.
Yes, I think it's actually a lot more vicious than it at first appears. I think, in fact, "take him up" indicates that he's going to be thrashed.
Oh yeah, well, that's what I got. Yeah.
Also think "no or while I live." I think that "or" is because someone's hit him.
Yeah.
That's possible. I mean, we have got relatively early plays with where the question of education comes in, of which the solution is, if the boy isn't learning, hit them more. So occupation and idleness, or is it the other way around? Which is going back to the 15th century, has exactly this kind of thing. So that's the educational system. Eric.
I was gonna say, yeah, Listen, infants also have that, where like not infants, wanton avoids school because the master will lift his dock.
Which we once again get here, don't we? Mawd saying, get to school quickly, or I'll twidge your dock. I'll smack your bottom, as it were. So yeah. So far, it's a different world, but only to a degree. Only to the sort of extremes that we may or may not get. Any other thoughts before we move on? Eric?
Well, also, you kind of get the impression that Fenell is going, or Fenell, depending on how you want to pronounce it, is up to something. Like, sort of, we've had all this speech about how he hates his life and his masters and so on. But then he's kind of sympathetic towards Dick, who, sort of like maybe forging alliances or, I don't know. It just seems a bit like sort of there's a motive to this.
Well, yeah, there's a fundamental difference between a servant complaining by themselves to the audience and, looking out for the interests of their masters later on. And yeah, it's interesting his excuse, because when he enters and there's no entrance marked, Mawd says, where have you been? And he says, well, to fetch white puddings for your breakfast, I could get but these two. And I'm wondering whether there's a double meaning to something going on there that I don't know what it is. So I'm that's interesting. I mean, he could just turn up with some white, could have basically gone off to get himself some breakfast from next door, which again, not unknown. Helen, I think you waved earlier.
Yes, it was just, I thought we were about to go into the next scene. I've done a bit of OED work on it, and Doster is definitely daughter.
Right, lovely. Whoever says Doster later on. Oh, it's just in the
Yeah, I'm not sure. It may appear later as well.
Anyone else? Or shall we read on another scene or two? Or two. We'll read two. We'll complete what is down as the first act. The precise act and scene divisions are... it gets more questionable later on. It's relatively straightforward at this point, I think. Helen can answer that better than I can. Anyway, we'll read Act 1, Scene 4 and Act 1, Scene 5, and then we'll pause. So, Act 1, Scene 4, Mawd and Nan. Mawd the mother, Nan the daughter.
Shall I warn you so often you never mend? Sith my words bear no strokes, strokes and words I blend. Use good manner, be handsome, and do what I command. What must you be taught so oft in the wanant?
Alas, alas, now, sweet mother, forgive me. If ever I do again, now, good mother, kill me.
Go to, then go to, do so any more. And if faith I shall make thy skirts and sides sore.
Thanks be to God I had a thorn boughs in my cap, or, in these two tempests, I might have had a thunderclap. Alas, good Mistress Nan, what aildest you to whip? For 40 pound a shrew hath been biting of a ship. Peace, fair lady, peace. You mar your fairer face. I pray you, what is the matter? How stands your case?
Away in the devil's name.
Alas, who beats Nan? A foul ill on his fat face, by St. Anne. She hath a woman's heart, and well she playeth a woman's part, to be rabbled anger half an hour at once, after she be well angered once. I know what you ailed, I could mend it, if I will. But you will tell me nothing, nay, it shall not skill.
Oh, Fenell,
How you sped him now?
I was handled today.
Marry, I beshrew him that handled me so, by my fay. Were ye handled? Who handled you? And were you so?
You mock me that you do.
I bear the mocks and you the knocks. What you want?
Well, I have seen thee have 10 times as much as that, and yet God knoweth I had too much, but wench's fortune I trow to be such, never to be in quiet rest. Women can never have that they love best.
That you love best will no less serve you. Take that you can get in the meantime, I pray you.
We have so many things to take heed upon that strokes we must needs have many on.
Marry, mistress, God forbid but that you should have all things you need.
First, we must be fine, trick, handsome, and neat. Small middles, well-made, frolic, and feet. Head, eye, hand, hill, nor naught must be awry. For the least of these, I warrant you, we must abide. We must also look into the kitchen and buttery, and so that all be well, but especially all husbandry. And, well, when I'm lady, wenches shall have more ease. Till then, I must never be at ease. Well, at ease.
Indeed. All this is too much for you. It was a meter that a better should have had it, and not you.
It is true, but it is 8 of the clock and past. I must go make ready my father's breakfast.
Put a pudding in the pot, that I may have somewhat.
For all thy mocks, I will not stick with thee for that.
How say you, masters? Is not my dame a shrew? I dare not say it in myself, but I'll be judged by you. How she canvassed little Nan before your face. And what knaves be these schoolmasters in like case? They pay little Master Dick as my master pays me. For I, for my part, go not always scot-free. I had rather be in heaven than live such a living. Let them go to the devil, and I'll go to my pudding.
Again, there's so much here to unpack. This is fascinating. Yeah, once again, we're getting someone beaten. And we've got this wonderful line from Nan of hoth, oh, ho, oh, ho, hump, oh, hum. And there's two options here, because we don't have the exit of Mawd, we don't have any, it's either that's the reaction to being beaten, or it's it's crying, because the lines that follow are suggesting that that Nan is crying after being beaten. So it could be actually more noise rather than a ow, ow, ow noise from her. But when it comes down to, the expectations that she's expected to live to, That's fascinating, and just the way that's layered. So with we got a third example of expectations loaded on someone, and how fair or not fair is that? And Fenell once again arranging it himself to have more breakfast. So he's kind but also self-interested. I'm really finding Fenell fascinating on that level. Rachael.
Just the dynamic of this family, because it's not also that that Dick has gotten beaten by the schoolmaster and Nan has gotten beaten by her mother, I think. But that the presence of Fenell and how the parents have a much smaller role. I wonder if they're quite wealthy and that there's some dynamic where the servants are more present. I mean, this is just so far. I don't know if we'll see them more, but yeah. And then also somebody wrote feminist Nan, and I wonder if it's just she doesn't want to make the pudding for him because he's a servant and that's more his job. I'm not sure.
Lois.
No, I think that last line means that she is going to do it. You've been making fun of me, but yeah, okay, I will put a bit of pudding in the pot for you.
Because Fenell is almost this sort of break between the parents and child, isn't it? It's actually constantly trying to mitigate either side to a degree. Playing both sides against the middle, possibly. We could be cynical on that level. But yeah, everybody has their own agenda. And of course, from the early modern perspective, to a degree, what Mawd and the schoolmasters are doing is perfectly reasonable. This is good character building. All this physical attacks. But it's also not unreasonably saying that it's not very nice being beaten, oddly enough, and it's quite sad. And people are aggrieved by it. Alan.
Obviously, social services were well underfunded at this stage. Otherwise, both the schoolmasters and Mawd would probably have been subject to visitation.
They'd be subject to visitations if they didn't beat their children, frankly. From the period, that's sort of the logic of the time. We've got quite a few plays from this sort of period that are all about, spare the rod, spoil the child, etc., etc. It's quite explicitly turning to the audience and reminding them every so often that that's the thing, which this play so far isn't doing. Actually, it's very much on the side of the aggressied. I don't know. Anyway, Eric.
I was going to say that it's interesting how, obviously the sort of school, the Dick's part where he kind of goes, yeah, I hate school kind of thing is reasonable, but then it sounds very contemporary. But Nan's bit where she goes, we must be fine, trick, handsome, and neat, and small, middle, well, basically all the things that, women are still expected to be today, to a degree. It just feels so relevant, and I don't know. Wow.
and yeah, there's this nice line of which I wrote in my in the margin. Oh yeah, question mark. Well, when I am lady, wenches shall have more ease. And I'm just sort of going, yes, until you are the mistress of the house, in which case I suspect you won't. It's an interesting question about the future dynamic of people. The room that they're in at the time and where they'll be in the future. I may be being cynical there. Other thoughts before we go into what we'll term Act 2? Okay, we will run. I think we'll run 3 scenes into each other. Let's just give Act 2 its head. So it starts with Master July or Julie and Julie and Wilkin. Then it's Wilkin alone. Then it's Wilkin and Dick. Then it's July and Wilkin, and then we'll pause. So no, as I say, there are no marks of any entrances, exits. Just simply for each scene, and it's broken down into 4 scenes. There is an indication of who's in that scene. So let's give Act 2 its head and see what comes out the other side, unless something amazing happens, in which case I will immediately ring the bell and stop. Okay, Julie, take it away.
Is there no choice for me to choose? Must I her needs forego? Why, Wilkin, no remedy. Must I lose her indeed? And must I so? Alas, poor Julie, then alas. I was wont to sing this song on my lute merrily. Now I have proved I may say it myself, mourning sorrowfully.
By my troth, master, never trouble yourself so sore. You vex and hurt yourself. I wish you do no more. Now, sir, as for your paramour you love so heartily, keep yourself close and love her privily.
Oh, Wilkin, Wilkin, what man is he that hath fire in his bosom and burned cannot be? My sweetheart, she loveth me none can be loved so well. How I love her again, there is no tongue can tell. I wonder what ungained things our parents could move, by all means that they can, to stop so earnest love. So to have ill parents, it is an ill thing. It is naught to have good parents, ill disordering their good children's good disposition.
That whereof you can have no fruition, nor pass upon it, for it were a folly to essay to do that. Done cannot be.
Fruition, sayest thou, Wilkin? If that did cease, I think I might be better at ease. But when she is still in my company, and I dare not see her, in our house we dwell, yet must I not come nigh her. Oh, all this will I mend in one day, or I will rid myself out of the way. I would I could speak one word with her yet.
Hurry, sir, and shall if I can help it.
Tarry thou then here, if she comes out alone. Come call me quickly, for I must be gone, to wait upon my father's stranger. I will stand betwixt thee and all the danger.
Here is a goodly household, God save all. First my old master and my old dame principal, then the two sons, my master, Master Julie, and little Dick and daughter, Mistress Nancy, and one gentlewoman which waits on my mistress, a fine piece of lace mutton doubtless. Her would my master fain have to his wife, for you may perceive that he loves her as his life. And she likewise to him hath no less devotion, glad would she be of such promotion. Mine old master and my dame be very overthwart, there is neither of them can find at their heart that this marriage should forward be set, when Master Julie hath a wife get. He should look for goods at their hands besides, and to hear of that they cannot with abide. If that were not, I think they would not be content, for the maid, I promise you, is both trim and gent. And good lands may she spend, as I heard say. Faith, my master saith, he will try many a way, but he will have her, though all her friends say nay. But look, where Master Dick from school comes here away. Your faith, Master Dick, had some school butter today. How now, Master Dick? What makes you so sad?
The cruelty which I have had. I had rather school were a fire than I come to it again. It shall not be long ere I leave it, that is certain. My brother, thy master, and I be both of us left here miserably. I heard my father all curses vary on him because he intended to marry. I was twice beat for my part this morning next my heart. To the school hereafter I will not go, rather than that will I anything do.
Stick you to your brother all that you can, and he will likewise stick to you again. He will find a shift to rid you of your pain, but you must do somewhat for him again. Tell him still what you hear men of him say. Tell nobody of him, mark that alway. Do what ye can for him, for you may be sure at all times he is able to show you a pleasure.
Yea, let me alone, I'm wise enough for that. Thou shalt see what I'll do.
But what ye what? If he had married, here you should dwell with him at his house, and pass for no man, no, not a louse. From beatings and from books, so shall ye be delivered. Say nothing then, let that be provided. When your mother is out of the way, and she herself alone, come quickly and tell your brother anon.
So I will, but I'll go, lest my mother think anything of my so long tarrying.
Master Dick, you remember, oh fair Master Dick, how say you now to Wilkin? Is not his wit quick, that be so little, or boy bringeth about so busy a matter, the which before was like sides by the way to scatter?
Oh, Wilkin, Wilkin, I am utterly undone. I would I had been dead as soon as I was born. Why tarriest thou? I pray thee go. Nay, alas, oh.
What should I do? Whither should I go? You'll have me go in waft? Soft, you'll tarry till your mood be past.
No then. Why, man, I talked with my lover, and my mother heard what I said unto her. I pointed her to meet me here at night. My mother knoweth she and I be undone quite.
If you'd sent me unto her, I would have been more ware. But you'll do all things yourself. Lo, what a one you are.
Tut, let that alone, and tell me thy judgment, whether that all there be any mendment. I think it best I do my fault confess, and betake me to my mother's gentleness. Then, peradventure, she will for this time pardon and forgive me this crime.
Then will she straight thrust your love out of the door, and you shall never see your sweetheart more.
Oh, God forbid, in no case that.
Nay, I'll tell you what. If you will follow my counsel, I will uphold you. All shall be well.
What is that?
Let your lover go tell your mother that you spoke unto her to meet her alone in the night.
Why, then she nevertheless may think me light.
Oh, peace! You shall see how the matter will frame. Your mother, when she heareth this same, will like your lover better an hundredfold. Then may she chance us, she herself will be bold, hither to come in your lover's stead. Then shall ye say, Lord, by this deed, I try how true thou art to my father and mother. I know you now, you whore, you will be no other. You would with another have done in like wise. In faith, it is likely to cost you your service.
Oh, Wilkin, under the welkin there is not such another. That is the best that can be to blind my mother. I was never so pensive and sad before, but now I am as glad and 1,000 times more. Well, sirrah, when thou waitest upon my father, in presence also when she waiteth on my mother, tell you her privily what she shall do. Let me alone, my mother doth not know, that I know, she knoweth what I said to my sweeting concerning the appointment of this our meeting. But let us enter in, lest she seeing us together will not trust thy love, nor mine neither. I will go here away, and thou there then.
And indeed, so they do as we close that act. And yes, suddenly a plot comes careering at us. We've had an act of, in fact, essentially sort of world building almost, actually. You know, we had the non-principals to a degree establishing who they were, and the sort of general state of the world. And then we come in with plot, and we have to vaguely keep up with what's going on, though in a sense that the overall plot is very simple, and of course we've already had it explained to us, so you know we've already had a chance to be tooled up with knowledge, so we got two people who like each other and want to get married, and there's an objection from the parents, and cunning plans will occur that are cunning to sort that out. They'll be very cunning. And actually, to a degree, I always wonder with these kind of complicated plots whether it actually matters whether you're following the cunning plan, or whether all you need to know is there is a cunning plan. I sometimes wonder about the level of storytelling that is actually required in terms of explaining the plot, these kind of plots. When Julie says, and I think Julie does seem to be fitting better than July, let me alone. My mother doth not know that I know. She knoweth what, and it's. I know she do. And that could be a lot more complicated than it actually ended up turning out to be. But it felt like that was the general direction it was going in. Thoughts from the room, Rachael.
I don't know if it's is this supposed to be a dysfunctional family, or is it like the things that I find dysfunctional about it, they would find fine, and the things that might be fine by me might be dysfunctional to them, or something like that? I'm not sure. There's so little of them. There's so much talking of the parents, and I mean, there's so much talking of the parents and so little of their presence, and the servants seem to have a heavy influence in the house with the children. And I know we're getting the parents in the next scene, and maybe I'll get some explanation there, but
Yeah, we're starting from the below stairs. We have seen the mother, but we haven't seen her very much. We haven't met the father yet. I don't think we have. And so we're very much the younger generation and the servants. And we're leaning very heavily on sort of Roman new comedy and things like that from the distant past at the moment. It seems, though that might be illusory. Briony, then Eric.
I know you said it's not necessarily that important to follow the cunning plan. I struggled a little bit with it. Am I right in thinking that his cunning plan is only to save himself and not actually very friendly to his wife, fiance, whatever she is at this point? Is it her that gets called a whore? I was a bit confused by that whole explanation. Sorry.
I'll go to Helen in terms of if you're wanting to respond to that.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely that the plot is completely incomprehensible at this point and it doesn't actually matter. But yeah, he is assuming that the woman that he meets with in the dark will not actually be his beloved Julian, but someone, either his mother or someone else. So by rejecting her, by saying he was testing her, he won't be actually insulting the girl. And the girl will already have told the mother about the plot. So the girl is okay because she's already established her bona fides. So they're both coming out of this smelling of roses is the theory. The point that I was going to make was that I think at the beginning of this sequence, Julian definitely has a lute.
Yes, I did actually make a note. When they mention a song, is that a literal cue or is that just a reference using it as a simile? Lois?
Yeah, I think what's happened is that his mother has overheard him talking to Julian and getting her to meet him that night. And I was quite surprised to see this overheard setup speech situation coming as early as this. I mean, it happens a lot in Restoration comedy. People arrange for somebody to think that they're getting private information, whereas in fact it's a setup. And that's what's happening here, because he now assumes that his mother, knowing this, will come there instead of Julian. And then he will pretend that he thinks it's Julian and will say, I was just testing you. And in fact, now I think you're terrible. And so it will convince his mother that he's not in love with Julian. What puzzles me is why he doesn't think that Julian will then be beaten and thrown out. But at any rate.
Because they've already said that before that happens, the reason why Julian will go to the mother.
Ah, yeah, I see. Yeah, let your mother go tell your mother. Yes, let your lover. Yeah, so she'll.
Yes. So she's going to pretend that she doesn't know that the Mawd already knows and will go and inform on him. And consequently.
I get it. Yeah, it's always happening. I mean, in Restoration comedy, it is normally a pair of lovers doing this for the husband and having one of these scenes where each of them pretends that they were just testing the other, and the husband is so happy because he thinks that these are all good friends and everything is fine. Yeah, but I'm surprised at. I mean, it must all go back to some Roman comedy that I don't know.
Eric, then Rachel.
I was going to say, we've seen this before. We saw this in the Downfall of Robin Hood. Anyway, Robert, Earl of Huntingdon, where the Queen Mother was sort of magicked herself into dressing up as Maid Marian or something.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And also, well, I'm just wondering if the relationship between Wilkin and Julie is sort of a Callisto-Sempronio relationship, which we're going to see again this week. Because it seems to be that he's like, Wilkin is the street smart one, kind of. I don't know if that's just me, but yeah.
Rachel.
No, it was to Lois's point about the overhearing. I wonder if the set itself is set up in a way where people can be listening in and not know they're being listened to. Because in that scene with Dick and the schoolmasters, it's like they seem to come out of nowhere and might have overheard, and it's unclear. You know, maybe that was just a component of the original set.
I mean, really
and now they're they're using that first scene to set up, foreshadow the plot.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting question how clear or unclear this can be made to be in a performance context, whether it matters knowing precisely where the plot is going in that sense. Briony, then Helen.
Also, in like a less strong way, a more watered down way, it's like another echoing of the previous scenes in that Julie's complaining. Again, is somebody coming in and complaining about stuff going wrong for them?
Yes, servants and the youth generally are all downtrodden by their cruel parents. Our parents mean. Helen.
Yeah, I was just thinking that there is an opportunity before this sequence begins for a little dumb show.
Yes, that's true. How do we explicate things that are quite complicated to explain? Show it, because then it's much more straightforward. And yes, that may be a solution if it is a problem. Okay, any more before we dive into Act 3? Okay, for Act 3, we'll read the first two scenes back to back, I think. First scene, we have a list of characters, most of whom don't say anything. The first scene is basically a two-hander, and the second scene is basically a two-hander. But we've got listed here Master Chremes, Mother Mawd, Julie, Dick, Nan, Fenell, Wilkin, Julian. And I'm assuming that's for the act overall rather than, but maybe they're all on stage. Well, let's find out. So, but broadly speaking, we have mother and father having a chat, and later on we will have Mawd, Julian, and Fenell having a potentially chat situation. So let's run those two scenes into each other.
Julie, go write your letter your father did bid you. Wilkin, wait on your master, lest he need you. Take your leisure, write it fair, hear ye, for your uncle will talk with him today. Now there is none, but we may them trust. Husband Chremes, there is a matter whereof I must talk a little with you for my pleasure. And now is the best time, we be most at leisure. Fenell and Julian in, make ready all things, that my brother, when he goeth, may lack nothing. Dick and Nan be enough for us. Now, sir, the effect of this matter is thus. We have heard whispering of Julie and Julian, that they intend to marry a God's name.
Why, Mawd, hath thou heard any more of that matter?
Aye, this same day I heard them privily patter, in a place where I was hard by them. And yet they wist not that I was so nigh them. Julie he walked in an alley in the garden. Julian she wrote in the parlour within. And I sat sewing in the window above, and heard Julie say to Julian, O love, all loves which is ours between, meet me at night when that we cannot be seen. I heard no word that Julian made answer. Thereof we may chance to take them together at night when they fulfill their behest. Therefore, husband, I think it best to let them alone. We will try what they will do.
Indeed, Mawd, as thou sayest, it is best to do. But what parents are we that hath such a son? We shall make him weary of this ere we have done. And for that queen I was offered money once. I would I were rid of them both at once.
Yea, so may we be. Now verily shortly we see. You had best go in. Julian cometh now. I must talk with my maid, and I'll come straight to you.
Mawd,
Aye, sir.
tell her thereof nothing.
So.
All things are ready, forsooth, mistress.
That is well, Julian. Thy faithfulness I have proved so oft that I doubt not of it. Neither do I mistrust thee any whit. Therefore thy counsel do I require, for of late a gentleman did me desire that Julie, my son, should marry his daughter. Were it not best for me to accept his offer?
Forsooth, mistress, you know I have but simple wit. What I can do is yours, you know it. Indeed, I think he were best to have a wife, both that he may himself may lead a quiet life, and also you have comfort, seeing you are here, to whom your goods may come without fear. And if you will pardon me to say my mind, I could tell a tale whereby you may find a present argument of his wiving time. But yet, for his fault, I beseech you to pardon him. Young men, ye know, will play a cast of youth.
As thou saith, Julian, that is truth. I know by my young age what youth is.
It is true, but it is only for my party whist. Master Julie, at all times, when I was in his presence, would still till me away by many a pretence to talk alone with him in some privy place. And this night I should meet him without any case. I'm sorry to say so much of him, sure, but I trust with him you will take no displeasure. It is best to take him in the manner, and chastise him now, lest he use it hereafter. If I would have been false to my good mistress, and my mind had been to marry that gentleman's goodness, but God forbid that I should be false unto you.
Lo, now I perceive ye trusty and true. That thou didst so well, I am glad. But I heard the talk you then had, and all was even as thou hast said. Lo, what it is to have such a maid. I will trust thee better as long as I know thee. Do all at night as Julie bade thee, or rather, I think we might do very well to make Fenell of our council. And let us send him to Menedemus' house, to fetch Misis, his daughter. She is very like ye. In the night he cannot know her from ye. So will not he be angry with you when he knows it.
Best of all, mistress.
What, Fennel, I say? If faith it is marvel if he be not out of the way. Do as Julian shall thee command. Hie ye quickly, dispatch your errand.
Run, tell Menedemus' daughter, Misis, that she must straight come to my mistress.
Is that all?
Is that not enough?
That is done already. Laura, how fast I go.
And we'll go to there in just a moment. So, yes, all the setup of the previous act is now being enacted in exactly as we were expecting it. So we're going into things that, we've set up there. And yes, all those people are bustling in and out, and they're being sent away. And I really like the little bit at the end of the scene with mother and father of just going, I'll be right back. What, Mawd? Yes. So nothing. Whoosh, whoosh. Oh yeah. It is dialogue, but it's almost not dialogue. It's just it's quite nice. I'm liking that. Alan, then Eric.
One thing that jarred slightly with me was the description of Julian had been sitting writing, which sounded a tad implausible for a character of her status, particularly in the light of what we've heard from her since, where she claims to be a simple girl. So there's a little bit of discontinuity.
Well, it depends on the class of servant and what they're for. Especially if we're going with a sort of neoclassical routing for this. What you use your servants for may I'm clutching at straws. Eric, then Lois.
Wasn't the letter writing Julie, not Julian, or is that just me?
I think so.
It's
Yeah.
Julian.
Was both.
Okay, yeah. In any case, I was just going to mention that it's like it kind of doesn't need stage directions because it tells you what what everyone is doing. Go write your letter, go fetch this, go do that, and all that stuff.
Yeah, that first speech by Mawd is it's like this phalanx of people wander on with her, and then they're sent off, and those who are on are also sent off, and etc. Until there's only two of them left. Lois.
There was an interesting bit where I think Chremes said he'd been offered money. I think this really goes back to the Roman comedy. I mean, that's as if Julian was a slave and somebody had offered to buy her, I think, and he now wishes he'd sold her. Isn't that the gist of that?
Yes, that's what I thought.
And I think Julian is just pretending to be a simpleton, isn't she? I mean, all this, oh yes, I'm really dumb. I mean, presumably she isn't.
Yes, I have but simple wit. I am a bear of very little brain. Helen, then Alan.
I think it's important that Nan and Dick are still on. It isn't just Chremes or Chremes or whatever we're calling him and Mawd. Nan and Dick are still there.
Dick and Nan be enough for us. Alan.
Sorry, it's the thought I had as scorn.
Okay. Other thoughts in the room? Rachael.
Like how I said before, if this is supposed to be like a dysfunctional family or something, that question, would people of this time be like scandalized that there was this mixing of classes, like that it's the servants hanging out with the children and also that the eldest son is trying to marry one of his mother's maids?
In terms of the way the households mix in that way, that wouldn't be scandalous. But yes, it would be perfectly reasonable for the parents to object to the son marrying someone that they haven't approved of, or also someone without any kind of dowry, which you can assume there. Alan.
Yeah, the thoughts come back. The comment about that Lois made about potentially slave or bondage. Fenell specifically in his opening lament was talking about how he was born in bondage.
Yeah, so that sort of connection with Roman comedy and that kind of logic seems bedded into this, though of course what universe the player is actually living in is a little confused.
The more we go on, the more it's got to feel that this may be based on a Roman original that we probably don't know, maybe hasn't survived, but it's got that sort of feel of it too.
Yeah. Or maybe an Italian play based on a Roman original.
Yeah, which is very plausible actually. We've been there a couple of times.
I'm also almost getting a feeling of either Fenell or Wilkin being almost a Frankie Howard Lerchio.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely that kind of
the cunning servant.
Yeah. Eric.
I was just going to say that it's also mentioned in the prologue that the father sells her off or something like that.
Yeah, and that the slaves will get their freedom too, which is a classic Roman comedy thing.
I was offered money once. It's just damn.
There was that thing of,
Is that within this play, or is that just a general comment on life, Rob?
It was from the play. It was from the play. Though I was offered money once. It doesn't happen very often. Other thoughts before we go into the final stretch for this session, Eric?
Well, it's very, very quick, isn't it? Like, even if the scenes are very short, and the ones that are even slightly longer than the shorter scenes are kind of very, very quick in terms of pace.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's moving super fast. I mean, this is not a long play. This is very, very quick and very short. So, which always appeals to me. Let's move on. Let's find out what's going on. Fenell is left on stage to walk a few paces to the left or right to go and look for Misis. We'll run this into the next scene probably, and then we might pause briefly. So we'll run Act 3, Scene 3 and Scene 4 into each other. We start with Fenell and Misis, and then we'll have Fenell and Wilkin.
There is much talk in the house, whatso it is. I think somewhat have chanced to Master Julian amiss, for he is very sad. I'll know the matter anon. When Mrs. is come, I will go to one that will tell me what all the matter is. Ow! Who's within? Mrs.? Mrs.?
Who's there? What? Who's without?
I would know who is within. I know who's without.
Who's at the door?
Mary! I!
Who is that?
Open the door, or I'll tell you what, you shall be a shrew so long as I live.
Sir, set that badge on your own sleeve.
What the devil? Open the door in the vengeance.
Alas, alas, are you in a trance? Stand further from the door. Let's see how you can dance.
And we have a stage direction. Open door.
I cry you mercy if I have done you any hurt. I took it for a knave, which gives me many a snappish answer, oft when I open him the door.
A mischief on thy missus' heart, for thou hast made mine ankles smart. Thou must go to my mistress straight. Were it not more for fear of my mistress than thy love, surely I would fight that I may chance to make you to shright. Come on. When I come for you again, to open the door, ye shall be more fain.
Oh, patience, Fenell, I knew not it were you.
In the vengeance, I beshrew you. In springing off too, oh, I hurt my hip. She hurt my shin, and I hurt my lip. But let to all this alone. Yonder cometh Wilkin. Oh, now I shall know all the matter of him. What, Wilkin?
What, Fennel?
Oh, thou knave.
Oh, thou thief.
Godspeed, harlotry.
Welcome to the mischief.
How the devil dost thou?
What the devil wouldst thou?
What old acquaintance?
What new remembrance?
Welcome to the town of the vengeance.
Oh, noble gallows. By God, no, by all hallows. I'm glad to see thee here now, for it was told me lately that Yao took upon thee, as one that could do it, to crap a tree with a hempen hatchet, where thou hadst like to take a great fall, if one tree had not borne you up, neck and all, would have green me, so God me save, when thou hadst been dead and laid in thy grave, to hear every clown say, here lieth a perpetual knave. Thus are we rid of one knave at once. Here lies another devil's knave bones.
I' faith, thou art as wise as a calf.
A side-eared ass is wiser than thou by the half.
Thou wast stripped last day and beaten sore.
Thou wast whipped and scourged together 3 hours and more.
Yea, thou knave.
Nay, thou knave.
Pass knave.
I've Invite it, knave.
I revi it, knave.
Nay, then I give it, knave.
Then I make double post, knave. For you dealt before.
What needs this courtesy betwixt thee and me? For to either of us, I trust it will agree.
He speaks for himself. Brother, put on your cap. Your brains be thin to perish your wit, lest cold get in. You shall bear a torch when light's put out, lest any man see to spy alout.
Now, Fenell, do after me, if you will. Help Master Julie forward in his marriage, and we both shall both be free from bondage.
Sayest thou so?
I'm sure.
Here is my finger.
The devil strike it off, if faith thou art old ringer. Thy wit for a worse, I'd be loath to cope.
One knave will be lost when thou ridest us in a rope.
Brother, to ride that horse, you need not at all to seek for our saddle. Yes, your buttocks be gall, but come within, and I'll tell thee fetch of this gear. For methinks my two young masters come here.
And before they do, I think we should just briefly pause and luxuriate in the wonderful way that this scene bounces along. We've had two wonderful short little scenes. Let's start with this one. The two servants finally meet, and they have bants. Yep. And it's just you dab do. They have little in jokes and backs and forths, and and Helen has just disappointed me by saying this that stage direction was hers, not the play's. So that's editorial. That's not original. Oh well, never mind. There is that weird line, he speaks for himself. It suddenly felt like it should be a stage direction, but I don't think it is. It's just a bit of dialogue. And then, the stuff with the open the door, who are you? I'm me, kind of gags. I mean, and it doesn't linger. And this is the thing. None of these scenes are going on. Sometimes we have these comedy scenes that go on forever. Linger with it, but it doesn't. It does a few gags and then it moves on. And I'm the economy of this is lovely. I'll go to Sarah, then Briony, then Eric.
Yeah, the economy is amazing. I mean, I love the fact that so much of the characterization and just everything really, the stage directions, the emotion, the how the actor should play it is just there in the dialogue, in these funny little half lines almost, but it's just it's just there. You read it and you think, oh, I know what to do with this. It's brilliant. That line, he speaks for himself. I was like, is that a stage direction? Should I miss that? But then I thought, well, we've had in the past, Fenell and Dick as well, but Fenell especially, he's had lines at the ends of speeches where he's kind of broken the fourth wall and sort of addressed the audience. So I thought, oh, well, let's just try this as an aside to the audience and see how it works. And I kind of felt that was how it was supposed to be, actually.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet it also it's inferring so much physical business with this door thing about is it that he's sort of running full tilt at the door and the door opens, or that kind of business, which I think we'd need to sit down and spend a little bit of time trying to unpack precisely how it works. But they both end up not too well from this encounter with this door, in some fashion. Briony.
Just that quite often with these, with the plays that I've read, there tends to be like a dominant clowny type character, even when you've got a couple of clowns. Whereas this is it's really well matched, which is what makes it so fun, and it gives it that nice back and forth, and you haven't got like you say, sometimes it can get a bit long-winded with the so-called humor. It's pacey, it's fast, it's balanced, it's really nice.
Yeah. And especially as you've got with Misis of just going, come to the door. Well, get out of sight. It's just, there's a plan. Shush, get out. Nobody must see you. Eric.
I was just going to say about the line, here is my finger. Is that sort of a reference to sort of getting married or a sort of pull my finger joke? Or is it one of those pinky promise kind of thing?
I had to say pinky promise was the first thing in my mind.
Yeah.
Certainly for a modern production. I don't know. Is there a, beyond a sort of shaking hand kind of thing? if anyone's encountered anything early modern that feels authentic. Thinking faces going on. I'll go to Sarah.
I have no idea whether there is or not, but I just think if you were doing a production now, it would be so fantastic if you turn that "here is my finger" into one of those like pinky promise, that you see like American teenagers do, where they do like the pinkies and then they do yes, exactly, and then there's up, down and like and turn in a circle, and it just goes on for like 5 minutes. That would be hilarious.
Until it's suddenly broken off with "the devil strike it off."
Yeah.
Whenever they get out of sync or they lose it, that's when they how long can you string it out for?
Yeah.
And that's what always with a text like this, where again, Briony's point earlier about there's an ensemble sense to this rather than there's a couple of dominant clown figures. We get that with boys' companies stuff a lot, actually. It's sometimes demarcated, but the sense that it's really worked through business, that has been rehearsed and worked in a way that sometimes the professional companies just don't have the resources or that they're not designed to do. And so this has a real flyingness to it all that I'm really enjoying, really loving this.
Can I ask? There's a tremendous amount of perfectly brilliant suggestions coming up in the chat. You do keep the chat, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, good.
Yes, I've seen a few very nice thoughts in there. So other things, Eric, then Rachael.
It is kind of cool that we've got Fenell and Wilkin playing off each other, and they kind of go, like one of them. They don't necessarily rhyme, but it's like sort of one-upping each other. Like, that was stripped last day and beaten sword. That was whipped and scourged. And it's like sort of almost a rap battle kind of thing.
Luxury my day. Rachael, then Briony, then Alan.
Just the set. I wonder if I know the stage direction is editorial, but we do have so many of these scenes, like what is it, before when Mawd says she spied them in the garden, and I wonder if there's from this scene with Fenell and Misis, if there is we're in like some sort of front of their house where there's chairs and a door and then just the outside, so it gives us this movement where people can overhear you, because obviously it's a set and there's nothing between you.
Yeah, and we've got other plays where you've got these essentially outdoor houses, street settings, bugbears. We've got Gamma-Gurton's Needle, other plays where that there's quite a few that do this kind of thing within this kind of performance context. So it's entirely feasible. Was it Briony next? I think it was.
I don't know how relevant it is, but it's just occurred to me that like the dynamic of this with the relationship between the servants and the children, and then with the parents being the more baddie. I don't like to use the word baddie, but you know what I mean, in black and white terms, like they're the more baddie characters. It means that I guess sometimes you get this us and them vibe with these plays where the servants are a certain way and then the rich people are a certain way, but it kind of splits that a little bit because the servants are here looking after the kids. So I don't know, I guess people aren't necessarily being judged as good or bad based on their class, but actually a lot more by their actions.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, all of these, I think Sarah said something like this earlier, just the so much, we know who these people are almost immediately. They're painting these characters very vividly, and they have a life to them. They're not cardboard cut out by any stretch. They are broad brushstrokes. They are bold characters, but they have a life to them that feels lived and very real, which I'm liking a lot. Helen, then Eric, and then I think we'll move on.
Yeah, I just wanted to excuse the stage direction. I had to, while I was editing, I had to put a lot of notes in because all of the speech headings are single letters. So Julie and Julian have the same speech heading.
Helpful.
as does Mawd and Misis. I mean, it wasn't the easiest. It isn't the easiest text in the world. And one of the things I had to do going through was to work out actually what was going on. So if you come across another stage direction, it's purely because I haven't taken my notes out.
Fair enough. And well, that's fine. And I'm not objecting to editorial, just so long as I know that they're not original, so we don't mislead our audience. And actually, going forward, putting more stage directions in and doing more interpretive elements of that is where we go next time anyway. So at the moment, it's feeling very second looky, isn't it? It's doing. I'm scared now for tomorrow, the curse of the final session. Anyway, we will read the final two scenes of this session now. Act 3, Scene 5 and Scene 6, and we start with a bit of a crowd, as it were. Wilkin has just said that various people are coming on stage now. So we'll have Julie, Wilkin, grammar schoolmaster, scholars, Dick, song schoolmaster for Act 3, Scene 5, and then following scene will just be Julie and Wilkin.
Well, this you say, then my father said that in Julian's place should come Mrs. the maid.
Yea, forsooth.
He did very well to tell me how other my matters mell. Come on, for this so good a merit, lo, I will do you like a like benefit. Master Schoolmaster, I pray you let the scholars go play.
By my troth, sir, although they have done naught today, yet for your sake let them go.
I thank you, sir.
God, thank you, Master Julie.
Master Julie.
Thank you.
Master Schoolmaster, shall I be so bold to desire you to break up the school for an hour or two?
Sir, your own brother may go play straight, but the rest, refit an anthem gainst night.
Brother, now go you home and do what you list. So for this day at school you shall not be missed.
Sir, I talked with your father even now, and told him all the matter how. You bade me wait on your lover right, when she cometh to meet you at night, and he will set another in my stead. In any wise therefore take heed, but you take a cudgel under your cloak, and pay them that cometh many a stroke.
I know what I should do.
I think they have prepared already. I will go and tell them you are so greedy that now you did send me for her, bidding her, rather knowing, to get on her muffler. Here is a wand I will bring her with me if I can. Lo, now is your time. Come play the man.
I must now feign I am in love, and so I am indeed. Now to utter all my wisdom I had need. Methink a window cracks, I must counterfeit gravity. Was ever man in such a perplexity? Oh, what is love, by dear God a love? One were better dead than with lovers' darts paid.
Then Julian. Here they both be, this gear is trim.
Thou knave, art thou so false to me and my father, and thou so untrue a whore to my mother? Lo, now, if it had been another, ye would not have sticked to have been false together. Go, whore and thief, and take that for amends. It shall not be long ere you flet from hence. If I would have been naught, they would have made me be naught. But somewhat have they both two caught for this which they have wrought. I will see whether they will take heed this time, for doing hereafter the like crime. Well, now I think best to go in, to see how the matters frame from with Wilkin.
And we will pause there, though we might actually briefly return to that scene to prefix next time, because it does feel like it's important the way the things are overlapping. So I'm going, again, we're sort of returning to plot there, and I think we need to almost park that till next time to discuss that too much. But we do have a wonderful moment of arranging for the kids to get out of school because they're not getting any work done. So yeah, why not? But you better be ready for singing later on. You've got responsibilities to sing, and yeah, you better be ready for that. That's important. Rachael.
How Helen said that it was just like the first letters for like Julie and Julian and Mawd and Misis. I wonder if there was some doubling going on here, and Julie and Julian are played by the same person, because we had that scene, I think, where they were going to have somebody else in Julian's place come meet Julie, and he would reject that person, and that would make sense if you had the same person playing both, because the lovers couldn't have a meeting if they're both played by the same person on stage, and so you'd need somebody else to but I might be confused about a scene in the past.
Briony, go for it.
They're in the next scene together. Act 4, Scene 2, sorry. But yeah.
The one thought that occurs to me is that at the moment it seems almost to be a vehicle for the two servants, for Wilkin and Fenell, with just enough from the other characters to keep the plot sort of ticking along. But we've had that lovely set piece between the two servants, and I apologise for the fact my accent was veering all over the place. In part it was picking up the vibe of how Sarah was phrasing her stuff, which became infectious. And I thought, the only way to do it was to actually sort of get down. It was almost a Yaboo schoolyard row, wasn't it?
I just think those two are wonderful, the way they play off each other.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think in my very first Fennell's speech, he mentions Wilkin by name, like right at the beginning of the play. So this relationship's been set up from the very first scene, and then you get this wonderful payoff when they actually finally meet.
Yeah, they're obviously, I think in terms of acting, they're probably an established double act pretty well.
Sorry, I'm back in the room. Apologies for disappearing there. Briony.
Just because nobody said it yet, but actually it's been really, really pleasant to read this today. It's not, some days, even when it's fun and there's some nice rhymes and some good language in there, it can be quite hard going to read some of the older material with them phrasing it differently and things. And I don't know how much of that is we need to be thanking Helen for what she's done with the script, but it hasn't been laboursome at all. It's been quite pleasant to read.
Yeah, it really has been a joy. I'm delighted. It's always that question. When a play is really unknown, this is not a play that people talk about very often. Even within specialists. It's sort of known. You sort of expect, there'll be a reason. I don't know what the reason is. It's really good so far. Helen, did you want to say?
No, I was just saying that all this talk of how easy it is makes me feel it may be a trifle over-edited.
I was still falling over my words as usual. So if that's any consolation.
I'm now wishing I'd passed it past Lois, because she's better. She's obviously better at this than me. From the comments.
All this work of it. I think one reason it isn't better known is that the state of the text is so awful. I mean, it is very difficult to read, and you have done a great job in making it a lot more readable.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing.
It's in secretary hand, and it's not difficult secretary hand. The trouble is that not many people read secretary hand.
But the Malone Society edition is difficult.
There isn't a relatively readable modern edition, and we need to sort that because it's clearly too good to be ignored. That said, it could be it might now descend into chaos and turn into a very disappointing ending. But even if it does, there's so much good material in the first half that there's too much to be done already. We're approaching final thoughts. I'll go to Alan first before I do that.
Just one question. There's been some comment in the chat on the fact that we've had God knows how many scenes so far, because they're all very short. And I think Helen made a comment in her notes that the scenes were numbered in the French manner, which I've got no idea what that means.
I know something for once. That's, it means that the scenes are split up by whenever somebody enters or exits.
Or a major entrance or exit in that sense. There are occasional where it doesn't. So in the sense, there's only one scene so far. There are a few times when the stage is empty, but as far as I can tell, it's effectively the same location, with people entering and exiting it. So it's almost, actually, you could say the acts are a sort of unit of action better suited than the individual scenes, though it is useful in terms of breaking the text into division. And the next half, it's going to be a lot harder because the action is almost much more contiguous, as it were, as we go forward. Okay, I'm going to go around for final thoughts. I suspect we're going to be quite brief because, that's the thing about when we quite enjoy the play. There's sometimes there's not a lot to say, but we'll have a go anyway. Eric, do you have any final thoughts?
It's fun. I'm kind of waiting for it to sort of take a. I know this is like sort of bad, but like I'm just waiting for like misogyny or something else to kick in, because like this is what usually happens, is we get so excited with like the first few bits and it's a U-turn kind of thing. But also it's just interesting how the things are paced and stuff, and it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, let's not be too positive in the sense that the world that this is inhabiting is one that is not does not share our values to an absolute degree. So there are elements here which but they're more under the surface, and actually there's enough give and take, and the fact that the characters are dynamic gives us a lot of room for maneuver. Sarah, do you have any final thoughts?
I'm just loving it a lot. What I think I love about it most is the fact that the A plot seems to be in service of the B plot. And I love that, because I do love it when the kind of the secondary characters, as it were, get to kind of actually have some full characterization, which you get quite a lot of that in early modern drama because of clowns, but it does tend to be the clowns. Whenever we do a play where they have more, I always enjoy it. But this, I think, is just brilliant, and the dialogue sings off the page. And I'm really, really hoping that it doesn't fall prey to final part of the play curse, because I think this could be just a joy to stage, and really, really interesting to stage as well. You could really, get stuck in.
Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's very enjoyable so far, and I hope that it continues in the similar vein. And beyond that, it's difficult. I mean, the thing is that you would need certainly to rehearse pretty heavily, I think, particularly the two servants, because of the double act element of it. Most of the time when they're reacting or interacting with supposedly the A plot, that is reasonably controllable, but it's when they get into the double talk stuff that it starts getting interesting and complex.
Yeah, it is that sense of being, working with games, making sure that people work together, that there's complicity between the performers. It's so important. You can't sort of fake that. But yeah, it's all the way through. It's fascinating. Anyway, Briony, any final thoughts from you?
The only thing that I haven't said, because it's kind of a non-point, but I'll say it anyway. play. The character names are like the wrong way round, like Fleetwood Mac style. So you've got Julian, who is female, and Julie, who is male. Simple things please me.
The stress of Julianne slightly solves that one, and thinking about Julie as sort of a Julius kind of thing, you can see where they're coming from. But yeah, it gives you options as well. I think there's a lot of play here for what we define by the meaning of names as well, and what that does to performance choices rather. Lois, any final thoughts?
Well, even though the two schoolmasters are the schoolmasters from hell, I still think it's probably written by a schoolmaster, and it's a very clever combination of several motifs. I mean, the beaten child who hates school, and the servants wanting their freedom because they can see that if this young man gets married, they'll have a much nicer household to live in than the one they were in, and that's how they managed to rope the younger boy into helping them as well. Plus the obvious blocking parents and marriage plot. And I suspect, anybody who knows Roman comedy can probably guess too, at least one of the things that's going to happen at the end. So we shall see.
Yes, will the servants get their freedom? Will everything turn out for the best? Rachael, final thoughts?
I think this is... There's something about these scenes that they seem to move at a faster and lighter pace than some of the other stuff that we've read over. And then just, it seems like it's taken stuff that we've done before, but there's something a little fresh about it, especially about the Fenell and Wilkin scene. It's just was very nice. And then I had a question about the manuscript, how at the beginning Helen said that they would be passed around or copied sometimes. Was that a copyright thing? What was copyright, I guess, for these people? Because I know we have some of those Q scripts to avoid that. And how big of an issue was it for people to not have their stuff like traded illegally by copying manuscripts?
I'll go to Helen, and Helen, you can answer that and segue into final thoughts if you like.
Yes, I think Lois will be better at it than I am, because I really don't know anything about the law of copyright, except that everybody found it extraordinarily difficult to enforce, and there were constant accusations of theft. But if you'd written something rather good, you tended to either make or have made a lot of copies and then send them to your friends and say, I don't know if you saw my pamphlet on so-and-so, but I copied it for you, and do share it with your friends, because I think it's rather good. So, this happened a lot. And how much commercial value a play like this would have had, it's difficult to tell, but Lois will be much better than I am on copyright plays. If I've got to do my final thoughts on this, all I can say is that what had struck me about the play was how awful it was on violence towards children. I found it really, really upsetting. I hadn't spotted what a very, very good play it is. I thought it was extremely unusual. And I think Rachel's word fresh is probably the right one. It's hearing it read has completely changed my view on it, which is good.
Yeah, it justifies why we're here. Lois, did you have any additional thoughts?
Well, no, just from the point of view of copyright, there is no copyright, is there, at this period? But I would guess what happened a lot was that some schoolmaster would write to another schoolmaster and say, I heard that play that was put on, at your last speech day was a huge hit. Could I have a copy of it, please? It seems fairly likely that they'd be looking for plays to do with their own schools.
Well, yeah, and especially as the third iteration of Wit and Science, which is called, I can never remember because they all are so similar, A Marriage Between Wit and Wisdom, exists in manuscript, but it's written out like it's a printed publication, and it's an interesting question in my mind whether that's because it was copied from a printed thing or whether they were emulating that as a presentation kind of copy thing. And I've always wondered about that, about the copying, whether they think, oh, I'll copy it like it's a printed play, and whether that's an odd thing. I don't know if that's an entirely ridiculous thought.
I did read an article a long time ago that really threw me because it argued that, in fact, that was a forgery by J.P. Collier, who had got the idea because the Marriage of Wit and Wisdom is mentioned in Thomas More, and he was arguing that this play must have existed because it's mentioned there, and other people said it was just a made-up title in the play. And so the author of this article was saying that Collier had simply written, forged the entire thing in order to prove that there was such a play. This really threw me. I mean, and the same, I think, was true of, any play that didn't actually get into print and exists only in a manuscript. There's always the possibility, that this horrible J.P. Collier got hold of it, or that, in fact, it's not an original manuscript. It's J.P. Collier, who was actually quite good at doing these things.
Mm.
Yeah, but one of the things that they're now talking about with Collier is how many of the things that we think he wrote were in fact discoveries.
Yeah.
Because they're now beginning to edge just a little way back.
Uh-huh.
That's an excellent point for discussion. Sadly, not necessarily for this time, but it's a really good point. Actually, there are some of the texts we look at where the label of doubtful does sometimes land on them. We always hope for the best, and if they're interesting, and especially with that third iteration, there's all sorts of interesting questions about how that functions because of the various plays it's dipping into. Might send us into a tailspin, but that's something we'll worry about at a future moment. Any other final thoughts anyone wants to throw in about this play before we close the session? Helen's got hold of her Malone Society edition there. I think we might be doing some notes about the text when we're off camera. As we make live adjustments to any questionable areas of the text. So all that remains is to thank all these wonderful readers for all their wonderful time with what has turned out to be, on the whole, a wonderful play. So thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Schoolmasters be fiendish fellows, you may me believe.